Hey, welcome back to NowMedia.tv and Biz Talk TV. I'm your host and business guide, Michael Rager. We're ready to learn some new bookkeeping tips from our resident bookkeeper, Kristin Gunderson. Hey, Kristin, take it away.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on the Biz Talk Show today. I am Kristin Gunderson, the CEO of Gunderson's Bookkeeping. I'm here to get all of your bookkeeping and tax questions answered. So today's question is kind of a broad one. What other bookkeeping tips do you have for us? So I have 3 tips I'm going to go ahead and share with y'all today. So the first one is be able to differentiate your spending categories. So for example, like if you are spending money on advertising or if you're spending money on insurance, like make sure that you're able to calculate like how much money you're spending on advertising for the month and for the year, and how much money you're spending on insurance for the month and for the year, and how much money you're spending on office supplies or cost of goods sold, insurance, vehicle and fuel, bookkeeping, like how much money are you spending on all of these items? And the best way to be able to do that, like there's a few different ways. One is if you're just getting going and you don't really have the funds to spend it on an accounting software, at least start on an Excel spreadsheet. And every time you spend money, just go ahead and do a line item, put, okay, I spent $500 today on advertising and I spent $100 on fuel and went out had some meals and entertainment, spent $50, taken client A out to lunch today, and just go ahead and categorize every single line item of where you were, how much you spent, what the date was, and what category. So categories like advertising, meals, entertainment, fuel. That's what I mean by categorize. That way you can sort it on an Excel spreadsheet of how much money you're spending on each one of those categories. Now, if you are using an accounting software, this makes it even easier because when you put in that expense, you can go ahead and put, okay, went to the Shell today and spent $50 on gas. I mean, it's automatically going to categorize that. You can run a profit and loss, and you can easily see how much money you're spending for the month in each one of those categories, and it's in alphabetical order. So that is my number one tip. Just make sure that you're getting in there and you're categorizing everything correctly. A lot of times I will get an Excel spreadsheet from someone who's doing their own bookkeeping, but they need their taxes done. And it just says, on 1/15, I spent $50 at Shell. Well, if it's Shell, I know it's gas. But if it's ABC vendor, I don't know what ABC vendor does. So that's why having that category of, oh, ABC vendor is really cost of goods sold or job supplies, or whatever it is, like that way we know, because we need to have things categorized in order to put it on your tax return. So just having the blanket expenses doesn't really help. It needs to also have a category of what that expense is, because we don't know everything. The next tip that I have for you is you need to be able to organize and store your financial records. And this is really important. You should have all of your copies of your receipts for at least a minimum of 3 years. And you need this for tax purposes, audit purposes, obviously. But you want to keep them organized, but you can easily find them. So if you're old school still and want to keep paper copies of all of your receipts, you can do that. But make sure you buy the file folders and the file cabinet to go with it, and maybe you don't have a lot of transactions by month and you just want to be able to throw everything into the month of January, the month of February, whatever month that transaction happened, just have a file folder for that month and throw it in there. All of your income, customer deposits, all of your expenses, and keep track of it that way. If you want to know by vendor, you could keep track of it by having a file folder for each vendor. Say you go to the Shell gas station a lot and you want to keep all those expenses in one folder, just having a vendor folder for Shell or for ABC vendor and for DFE vendor, like just keep them by vendor. So however you want to keep it organized, that will best work for you. That's what I recommend doing. I've seen it both ways. It just depends on how you like to organize your stuff, like how it will be easier for you to be able to find it in case you do need to look it up. And then you can have the same thing for your customers, have it by customers or by vendors. That also works. Now, if you are more into the whatever today is, the 21st century, you can actually have everything digitalized. That's what we have been doing for at least the last 5 years, is every receipt that we have that comes in the door, my receptionist scans it for us, and then we have a digital copy of it. And we keep it for about a year in paper copy, just in case we find that it didn't scan like we thought it did, and then we go ahead and shred it afterwards, because we still have that electronic copy. I personally use a company called Smart Vault, and that is where I have all of my receipts saved. They're all saved by month, but they're named by the vendor and the dollar amount and the date, so they're easily to find. So say I'm looking for, I saw that I spent a check for $500, but I forgot to put it into my accounting software. I can easily go and search for my invoices and search in there for $500, and it'll pop up, and I can be like, oh yeah, it was ABC vendor. So I can correctly categorize it in my software. So having them electronically works great too. And actually, if you are with an accounting software that is an online one, like say QuickBooks Online or Xero, I know those are both ones that our company uses. They have apps where you can literally, with your cell phone, go ahead and snap a picture of that receipt, and then you can attach it into the expense in the platform. And then whenever you go to look up that expense, like, oh, I spent $50, what was this $50 on? The receipt is attached, and you can later bring it up, and you're like, oh yeah, that was that was a gift I bought for Bobby Joe, my favorite customer. So you can easily see that. So that is something I highly recommend, because once it's scanned and it's saved and you have a system that backs it up, you don't need to keep those shoe boxes of receipts anymore. So that makes it a lot easier. So get organized and store your financial records. Another thing I'll tell you, like for receipts, it is really important to be keeping them. A lot of people will be like, well, you don't really need to keep it if it's under $75, because you just don't. But I tell my clients to keep it anyways, especially at least scan it and keep it, because when you get audited by the IRS, it's not a matter of if, it's kind of like when down the line are you going to get audited. They'll be looking for, especially meals and entertainment. On those meal receipts, you need to write, not only does it have to have where you were, which it should have on the receipt, how much you spent and the date, you also need to write on there who you were eating with. So maybe you were taking out your employees for lunch and you were discussing business. You need to write who was there and what business was discussed. If you're taking out a client, maybe it's a reoccurring client and you're just like, hey, let's go meet for breakfast or lunch, put the client's name and what you guys discussed. If it's a prospect, like you're hoping that this person will turn into a client, if you take them out to dinner or take them to whatever entertainment, like maybe to the golf course or something, you need to put on that receipt, again, their name, what was discussed, and then if they turned into a client. The IRS wants to know that too, if they turned into a client. Say you're going to Walmart or Home Depot, like you're going to one of these places and you can actually take cash out if you're using your debit card. The IRS also looks for those types of receipts too, because they want to be like, oh, they went to Walmart. And I know I've talked about this before, but was this a personal or was this a business expense? Are they buying groceries at Walmart and then they took cash out and then they're trying to hide it in their business by writing it off? Or did they really, like, they bought office supplies, like, oh, this is paper and ink, and like, okay, this is legit office supplies, they bought this from Walmart. The other thing they're looking for is if you took any cash back. So if you took out, say, you had a $100 bill from Walmart that you spent, and 80 of it was on office supplies, but then you took $20 out for cash, like, you know, did that money go into petty cash? Or, you know, if they can't locate where that money went that they took out, and the IRS is looking at it, they're going to code that $20 to an owner's draw, and then you only will be able to write off $80. So that's why it's so important to be keeping those receipts because you want to be able to prove that everything that you spent in your business is actual business expenses. So that's why you really need to be organized. Okay, the last tip that I can have for you, and it's a really simple one, is get into a habit, a financial habit. Get into a good financial habit of doing your bookkeeping, at least weekly. Say, put it on your calendar every week for the first hour, half an hour that you're at work. Make sure that you're doing your bank feeds if you're on like QuickBooks Online or Xero, doing those bank feeds. You're cutting any bills that need to be paid out to your vendors. You're doing payroll. So get into that financial habit of at least weekly, getting that on the calendar. Or maybe if you do have an accounting software that has bank feeds, you're getting in there for 30 minutes every morning, just seeing what cleared the bank yesterday and getting that into your books. And that way you can easily see the trends in your business, catch them before it happens, or say there's fraud on your business. Like if you don't look at your bank statements until like the month after they come out or quarterly, you're not going to be able to catch that stuff. So if you're getting in at least weekly, maybe every day to look at your bookkeeping and accounting, you are going to be in good shape. You're going to be able to make those better business decisions to be able to grow your business, which is what everyone wants. They want to be able to grow their business because that means more freedom for y'all, more money in your pocket. So I hope that these were some great bookkeeping tips for you today. Again, we talked about how to differentiate your spending, how to keep yourself organized, and creating a good financial habit. All of these things will help you to be able to grow your business. If you have any questions about anything that we talked about today, I would love to be able to talk to you. And the easiest way is you can actually text the word HELP, H-E-L-P, to 855-798-3350. And we can get back with you. It'll send you directly to our website by texting HELP to 855-798-3350. Or you can go to our website, www.gundersonsbookkeeping.com, or social media on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram at Gunderson's Bookkeeping. Thank you again for having me on the Biz Talk Show today.
That was some great information, Kristin. I know the one tip I need to take is doing my bookkeeping weekly. I'm awful at that, especially when I got to do 52 weeks of bookkeeping in one day before my taxes are due. So I want to go ahead and do that. So thanks a lot for that information. And we're going to